Let me tell you about the time I kidnapped a former member of the House of Commons. I drove past a cheap hotel, stalking out my prey. It was almost midnight. Tucked at the back of a service station off the motorway, it was dingy and deserted, the perfect spot. Pete, we'll call him, told me he'd be dressed in a light beige coat and jeans as he lurked a few feet from the hotel entrance, like a solitary smoker. Pulling up, I parked my car and reached for my bag to check its contents once more. Handcuffs, ball gag, gaffer tape, a Hessian sack. It was all there. My hands shook with adrenaline as I took a sip of water and watched him pace. He stopped under the security light, and I caught a glimpse of the badge on his lapel, indicating I'd got the right man. Rolling my balaclava over my head, I opened the car door and walked up quietly behind him. He didn't struggle particularly hard as I pulled the bag over his head, cuffed his hands behind his back and forced him towards my car. Pushing his head down and forcing him into the back seat, I whispered, "Shh." His heart pounded so it made his shirt twitch. He'd dreamt about this moment for 40 years. I gaffer taped his ankles so he could barely walk, then pulled the bag far enough up his face to stuff the ball gag into his mouth. "Not going to have any trouble with you, am I?" I demanded. He shook his head frantically. "Good. Still, can't be too careful, can we?" I said. I proceeded to frisk his pockets, find his phone, and put it in my bag. Then I drove for an hour to an abandoned farmhouse and derelict stables where people had already gathered to watch his humiliation. It was draughty and still smelled faintly of manure. The scent stuck to the dry hay strewn across the floor. I threw him down into the mucky pig pen. Dirt and dust scuffed his knees, and the bag was ripped from his head so he could see his audience, sitting sombre and expectant. He grunted and squinted, lifting his hands up to his face as his eyes adjusted to the flickering, naked light bulbs that hung from the ceiling. I stripped him naked and removed his gag. "Please, please, I don't deserve this. What are you going to do with me?" He played the character well. I bent him over a whipping bench, face down, legs spread, so the crowd could watch the blows fall. One of the women, Jane, was left-handed, while I'm right, so we caned him together. There was a whoosh of air as I brought the polished wooden stick down with force, the sting of the contact with his pale flesh reverberating off the barn beams. He twisted and squirmed as the welts rose. I aimed for the same mark each time, making him suffer the weight for the burst of agony that would lance through him. 60 strokes in total. He counted the blows as they fell. 1, thank you, mistress. 2. I left him there for an hour before giving his wounds a cursory mop and taking him back to his hotel. We travelled in silence. On the same quiet back road, I pushed him out of the car before pulling his hair until his ear rested against my lips. "You tell anyone about this, anyone, and I'm coming for you and everyone you love. You got that?" He nodded, and I got back in my car, clicking off the handbrake before I drove off into the night.